My name is Danielle Foster. I'm 43 years old, a mother of two, and until recently, I thought I was a happily married woman. For 20 years, I believed I had a solid life, a loyal husband, a trusted best friend, and a future I could count on. But sometimes, it only takes a single moment, a single message, to undo everything you think you know. It was just past 2 in the morning when I woke up and reached for a glass of water. Ethan was asleep beside me, breathing quietly like he always did. That was the kind of man he was. Calm, predictable, dependable. Or so I thought. As I leaned over, his phone buzzed. The screen lit up the dark room. I swear I didn't mean to look, but I saw the words before I could stop myself. Mi silky tia. You were incredible. I miss you already. Thank you for the 2 unforgettable nights. I just stared at it, frozen, like time had cracked open. He was supposed to be in Houston, at a leadership summit. I was home making pot roast and helping our daughter finish a school project. I felt like the floor had vanished from beneath me. I walked to the bathroom, turned on the faucet, and splashed water on my face, hoping I'd wake up from some dream I hadn't chosen. But I didn't. And in the mirror, I saw someone I barely recognized. Not just hurt, not just angry, but hollowed out. That night, something inside me broke. Quietly, without drama, just enough to change everything. The next morning, the sun came in through the kitchen window like it always did. Too bright, too normal. Ethan moved through the house the same way he had for 2 decades. He grabbed his mug, poured his coffee, asked how I slept. I told him I had a strange dream. That in it, everything I believed in turned out to be a lie. He laughed and said dreams were weird like that. Then he leaned in and kissed my cheek like nothing had changed. But something had. And even though he couldn't see it, I felt it in every cell of my body. I watched him leave for work and stood there holding his empty plate, my fingers twitching with the urge to throw it against the wall. Instead, I cleaned up the table. I loaded the dishwasher. I wiped the counter. It was easier to do normal things than face the storm gathering inside me. I didn't cry. Not then. I didn't scream or throw his clothes on the lawn. I did what women like me often do. I put on a clean shirt, tied my hair back, and called someone I thought I could trust. Jillian had been my closest friend since college. She was there when I met Ethan. She stood beside me at our wedding. She held my hand when I went into labor with our first child. If there was anyone who could hold me together in that moment, I believed it was her. She answered after the first ring. I asked if she could meet for coffee. I didn't say why. I didn't have to. She said she'd be there in 30 minutes. When I walked into the cafe, she was already sitting at our usual booth, sipping a latte. Her hair was curled like always. Makeup perfect. Expression unreadable. She looked up at me and smiled. But it didn't reach her eyes. "You look awful," she said, half joking, half concerned. What happened? I slid into the booth and placed my phone on the table. I didn't speak right away. I just tapped the screen until that message lit up again. Then I turned it so she could see. Her face changed. Just for a moment. Not dramatically. Not enough that most people would notice. But I knew her. And I saw it. A flicker of something shock. Fear. Guilt flashed across her eyes before she pulled her expression back into place. "What makes you think he's cheating?" she asked, trying to sound casual. But her voice was tight. Too tight. I didn't answer. I just watched her closely. She looked away. "He's someone's tire now," I said quietly, bitterly. And I was the fool who thought we were unshakable. Jillian sipped her coffee, avoiding my eyes. And in that silence, something inside me shifted again. It wasn't just Ethan I had to worry about. It was the possibility that the one person I trusted with everything might be hiding something too. That day, something started to itch at the back of my mind. A kind of knowing I didn't want. I tried to push it away. To believe that Jillian was just shocked for me. Not because of anything else. But her eyes had told a different story. Her voice. The way her fingers drummed the side of her cup like she couldn't sit still. It didn't feel right. Later that night, I sat in my car outside the school waiting for Maya's rehearsal to end. My thoughts kept circling back to that coffee shop. I replayed the conversation with Jillian over and over, looking for signs I might have missed before. I thought about how quick she'd been to defend Ethan, how nervous she looked. And then I remembered something else. 3 months ago, Ethan had a company holiday party. I couldn't go because Maya had the flu. He went alone. When I mentioned it to Jillian later, she brushed it off. Quickly. Too quickly. Said she had a migraine that night. And I hadn't even asked her if she'd been invited. Suddenly, pieces started to click together. Her change in tone when I talked about Ethan. Her recent excuses when I asked her to hang out. How she'd gone quiet every time his name came up. Maybe I'd been too tired or too trusting to see it. But now, with that message still burned into my brain, I couldn't unsee what was right in front of me. The next morning, I told Ethan I was taking the girls to my parents for the weekend. He didn't ask questions. Just said, okay. Like he was relieved. That alone told me everything I needed to know. I called Jillian before leaving town. I wanted to hear her voice. I needed to hear her lie to me. One last time. "Hey," she answered. "You all right?" "I'm leaving for Blue Ridge today," I said flatly. "Taking the kids." There was a pause. "That's sudden," she said. "Yeah," I replied. "Avery's coming home from college this weekend. And Maya's trip got cut short." "You're not overreacting, are you?" I froze. That word. Overreacting. The one people use when they don't want you to see what they're doing behind your back. Funny choice of words, I said. "Why would you say that?" "I just don't want you to regret anything," she said quickly. "I mean, it's a lot to walk away from. Maybe you and Ethan just need time." Now I wasn't even pretending anymore. "Whose side are you on?" I asked sharply. "Yours," she said, too fast. "Of course yours." "Then stop trying to talk me out of trusting my own instincts," I snapped. Silence stretched between us. "You sure you're okay?" she asked finally. "No," I said. Honest. For once. "But I'm getting there." I hung up before she could say anything else. I didn't want her comfort. Not if it came wrapped in betrayal. I didn't know everything yet. But my gut was no longer whispering. It was screaming. And I knew. Deep down, I hadn't just lost my husband. I'd lost my best friend too. The house looked the same from the outside. Neat lawn. Wind chimes clinking softly on the porch. Wreath still hanging on the door from last season. But when I pulled into the driveway, my hands were shaking. I wasn't supposed to be there. I had told myself I wouldn't come back. But Maya had left her school reading packet in the front closet. and I knew she'd need it by Monday. I parked with the engine running, thinking I'd be in and out in 5 minutes. Ethan was still at work. I assumed. The driveway was empty. The house looked still. I took a deep breath and walked in through the side door. The moment I stepped inside, something felt off. The air didn't feel like mine anymore. It was stale in a way that made my skin prickle. I moved quickly, heading straight for the front closet. The books were right where I thought they'd be, stacked beside the rain boots. I grabbed them, turned, and that's when I heard it. The sound of a key turning in the front door. My heart dropped. I froze in place, clutching Maya's backpack like a shield. Then came the voices. First Ethan's. Casual and low. "Don't be so nervous," he said, laughing. "She has no idea." And then, the reply. "I don't know. She seemed different this morning. Like, she suspected something." It was Jillian. That voice. Soft and familiar. The one that once read to Maya when she was sick. That shared secrets with me over wine on Friday nights. Was now tangled in whispers with my husband. I didn't breathe. I couldn't. They moved through the foyer, laughing. Ethan said something about finally being alone. Jillian sighed like she was relieved. I could hear them heading upstairs. Our bedroom. I didn't think. I just followed. Every step on the staircase felt like walking into fire. My knees were trembling, my hand dragging along the banister for balance. I used to love the creak of those steps. They'd once carried laughter, sleepy kisses, to la feet. Now each creak felt like a slap. The door to our bedroom was slightly open. I could hear them talking, muffled and low. A laugh, a rustle, then silence. I pushed the door open. The light flicked on, and everything became sharp and undeniable. Ethan stood near the bed, shirt half undone, his hair disheveled like he'd just run his hands through it. Jillian was beside him, her blouse wrinkled, her face pale as chalk. They both froze. "It's not what it looks like," Ethan said quickly. Stepping away from her like distance would erase everything. He tilted my head. Calm. I was so calm it scared me. "Really," I said. "Because it looks a hell of a lot like my husband and my best friend were about to sleep together. In my bed." Jillian opened her mouth, then closed it again. Our lips trembled. Ethan tried to move toward me. I raised my hand. "Don't," I said sharply. "Don't even try." He looked like I'd slapped him. The irony almost made me laugh. "You know," I added, "you two could have picked any bed in the city, any hotel. But no. You came here. You made it symbolic." They said nothing. I turned to Jillian. "Don't say my name," I warned. "You lost the right to speak it the moment you stepped into this house with him." She flinched. "I trusted you with everything. My kids. My memories. My grief. And this is what you do with it." Ethan tried again. "Danielle. Please." "No," I said. "I have your texts. All of them. Mi silky tia. My tigress. Very poetic." I took a deep breath. "I packed already. The kids are coming with me. You two can have each other. Have this house. Have the guilt. I'm done." And I walked out. Ethan followed me, begging, pleading, calling my name. I didn't look back. When I stepped outside, The air hit my face like ice. But for the first time, I could finally breathe. The drive to my parents' place in Asheville was a blur. I don't remember taking the highway. I don't remember checking the fuel. I just remember gripping the wheel so tightly my knuckles ached. My head full of voices that wouldn't stop replaying the last hour. When I finally pulled into the driveway, the house looked just like it always had. Porch light glowing. My dad's truck parked exactly 2 inches crooked like always. My mom opened the door before I could knock. She was in her nightgown and robe. Her hair pulled back into a bun that hadn't changed in 20 years. Her eyes scanned the suitcase. The kids. Then me. She didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. "You can take the guest room," she said, moving aside. I nodded. Maya curled up in her old bed like she'd never left. Avery arrived a few hours later from college, having driven through the night. He didn't say much, just gave me a long, quiet hug. The next morning, my mom made blueberry pancakes like she always did when life tried to fall apart. We sat at the kitchen table, the smell of syrup and butter trying to convince us it was still a normal Saturday. And then, she said it. "I invited Ethan," she murmured without looking up. My fork paused. "You what?" "He's your husband. You two need to talk." "No. We don't. Not here. Not now." She folded her napkin. "Danielle. All men stray now and then. It doesn't mean you burn the whole house down." I stared at her. "You think this is just about one mistake," I said. "He's been sleeping with Jillian, my best friend, for months." Her face didn't move. "Still your marriage." I pushed back from the table. "I've been holding this house together for 20 years. I'm not patching one more crack." She sighed like I'd let her down in a quiet, permanent way. That afternoon, while Maya sat outside sketching tulips, I began sorting through a box of old files I had brought from home. Bills, receipts, birthday cards, and then, at the bottom, a faded ribbon, tied around a stack of letters. They weren't mine. The handwriting was Jillian's. Each one was addressed to Ethan, dated over 20 years ago, postmarked just months before he and I met. I opened the first. "I miss you. I wait for the mail every day, hoping to see your name." My stomach twisted. These weren't friendly notes. These were love letters, raw and young and aching. I opened another. "You said you'd wait for me. What changed?" And then another. "Please, just tell me if you've moved on. I won't ask questions. I just need the truth." The final envelope held a photo. Jillian and Ethan, maybe 17, leaning against a fence, arms wrapped around each other like the world hadn't touched them yet. I felt dizzy. Why hadn't he ever told me? Why hadn't she? I drove to the only person who might know. Ethan's mother answered the door with that familiar polite stiffness she always wore around me. "I need to ask you something," I said, skipping the small talk. She nodded and led me inside. "Did you know about them?" "Before college." "Ethan and Jillian." Her lips tightened. "That was a long time ago. But it happened." She nodded slowly. "They were close. Neighbors. He wrote her for months after we moved. He never got a reply." I said. "No. He gave up." I pulled a letter from my purse and laid it on her table. It wasn't from Jillian. It was from Jillian's grandmother, to Jillian's mother. I intercepted all of Ethan's letters. She doesn't need the distraction. Let her think he moved on. Ethan's mom read it, her hands trembling. "Oh my God," she whispered. "They never knew." "No," I said quietly. "They didn't." And somehow, that made everything worse. Because what happened between them wasn't born from cruelty. It was born from something that was stolen before it had the chance to grow. When I got back to the townhouse, I sat on the porch for a long time with the letters in my lap. The air was still, the neighborhood quiet, everything around me calm. But inside, I was a storm I didn't know how to name. I stared at Ethan's contact on my phone. I didn't want to call him. I didn't want to hear his voice. But after everything I'd uncovered, I couldn't carry this truth alone. He answered on the second ring. "Danielle, I found the letters," I said. "And I found the truth." There was a long pause. Then he exhaled, slow and shaky. "So it was real," he said. "Yes." He didn't ask what I wanted. He didn't apologize. He didn't try to explain anything else. "Thank you," he said, "for telling me." Then he hung up. I sat there staring at nothing. I wasn't angry. Not in that moment. Just tired. Like someone who had finally set down a weight she'd been carrying for years. The next morning, Jillian showed up. No makeup. No earrings. No lipstick. Just her. In jeans and an old sweater. Standing on my porch like a stranger, afraid to knock. I opened the door before she could. "I need to talk," she said. "I don't. Please." There was something in her voice I hadn't heard in a long time. Not guilt. Not desperation. Just exhaustion. The kind that lives in your bones. I stepped aside. We sat across from each other in my kitchen. I didn't offer coffee. I didn't offer kindness. "I loved him," she said softly. "Before you even met him. He was my first everything." "I know. When we met in college and I saw you with him, I told myself it didn't matter. But it did. I stayed close to you just to be near him. At first. But then, I loved you. Too. As a friend. That part wasn't fake. You still slept with him." "It wasn't planned," she whispered. "It happened at the holiday party. We both drank too much. It was a mistake. But it didn't go on for months. It wasn't some long affair behind your back." "You think that makes it better?" "No," she said. "I think it makes it worse. Because we both knew better. And we still did it." I asked her the question I'd carried for weeks. "Did he tell you he'd leave me?" She hesitated. "That was enough." "Did he say he loved you?" She nodded slowly. "He said he didn't know what he wanted." "And you thought that was love?" She didn't respond. I used to think if he and I ended, it would be because of something big. Something unfixable. But now I realize. It ended because he kept choosing what was easy. Not what was right. She looked down at her hands. "I'm moving to Seattle," she said. "Got a new job. I need to go somewhere where everything doesn't remind me of what I ruined." I didn't say goodbye. I didn't ask her to keep in touch. When she left, it felt like a door finally closed. Not with anger. Not with regret. But with clarity. I wasn't walking away from something. I was walking towards something new. Spring came quietly that year. No sudden burst of color or loud declaration. Just soft light that stayed longer in the evenings and air that didn't carry the same weight anymore. I'd been living in my townhouse in Greenville for about 6 months. It wasn't big. The floors creaked in weird places. And the water heater had a personality of its own. But it was mine. Mine in a way nothing had been for a long time. There were mornings I'd wake up and forget, just for a second, that my life had completely changed. And that moment where everything was still, before memory came, flooding in, was oddly beautiful. Avery came home for the summer and brought someone with him. Her name was Kat. She had a quiet confidence and eyes that watched people with kindness, not judgment. I liked her right away. She treated my son like he mattered, not like he had to prove himself. Maya started painting. One afternoon, she asked if she could do a mural on her bedroom wall. I asked what she wanted to paint. She said, "Something messy but happy." She called it Mom's Fresh Start. It was all blues and golds, with splashes of white and jagged red that somehow made the whole thing feel hopeful. I let her keep it. I let her own that space, because it mattered that she saw this new chapter not as a breakdown, but a beginning. My mom changed, too. Slowly. In small ways. She joined a local volunteer group, something she never would have done before. My dad drove her to shelters twice a week and started writing poetry. It was bad, but it was his. One evening, my phone rang. It was Ethan. "I'm not calling to fix anything," he said quickly. I wanted you to know I'm sorry. For all of it. Not just what I did, but for how long I let you be alone in that marriage." I didn't say much. I didn't need to. The apology wasn't for reconciliation. It was for release. And when I hung up, I didn't cry. Later that week, I found myself at the same gas station I had stopped at that night I left him. It looked a little different now. Some potted plants by the front window. A few new shelves of travel mugs. Behind the counter was Grant. He looked up when I walked in, then smiled. "You again," he said. "You never did get the rest of my story." I replied. We sat down at the same tiny table in the corner. No ghosts this time. Just two people who had seen hard things and come out the other side. "You ever think about what you'd tell yourself a year ago?" he asked. I thought about it. I'd tell her the house would be emptier, but her heart wouldn't be. And that it's okay to mourn something even if you're the one who walked away from it. He nodded. I tell myself that grief isn't the end of the road, just a turn you didn't expect. That night, we didn't kiss. We didn't need to. There was something sacred about not rushing. About learning how to be okay in silence with someone who didn't need to fix you. Love, I was learning, didn't always announce itself with fireworks. Sometimes it whispered, quiet and steady, like a new life waiting just outside the frame. Looking back now, I don't regret leaving. I don't regret walking away from the life I thought I was supposed to fight for. Because what I was really fighting for wasn't love. It was the memory of it. And memories can't hold you at night. They can't speak truth when you ask hard questions. The truth is, I stayed too long trying to protect something that had already let me go. I kept hoping Ethan would notice the weight I was carrying. That Jillian would remember the friendship we built. But they didn't. And that's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't always arrive with cruelty. Sometimes it comes quietly, wrapped in excuses and soft voices and people who once knew your middle name and your favorite kind of tea. I've learned that healing isn't loud. It's not dramatic or cinematic. Sometimes it's just waking up and realizing you're not waiting for the other shoe to drop. You're just living. Avery's going back to school in the fall. Maya's mural is almost finished. Grant is still working the night shift. still keeping hot coffee and calm company for people like me. And as for me, I'm still writing this story. Every day. One choice at a time. If you've made it this far, thank you. Truly. If you've ever been betrayed, silenced, or made to feel like you had to shrink to keep the peace, I hope you remember this. You're allowed to take up space. You're allowed to walk away. You're allowed to start again.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.